everybody. How are you today? Doing well? We have 4 folks. We're supposed to have 8, so we gotta wait for a couple other folks to show up here. But we're not gonna wait today because we have tons of things to cover. So I want to get going. In chat, look at your chat question here. It says, which amendment in the Bill of Rights speaks to you personally? So when you were reading about the amendments, did any of them stand out to you as something that was really, really important to you or something that meant a lot to you? I'm just curious to know if any of it really meant something to you personally. All right, so Jackson feels like the First Amendment is the most important. Okay. Anybody else have a comment about which amendment in the Bill of Rights kind of speaks to you? That's great. Abe and Micah? Yep. That's good, Abe, because they're all important, right? The First Amendment is very, very important as well. All right. So let's talk about the foundational principles of our Constitution. So today we are combining Chapter 5 and 6. We're working on both, talking about both, and it reaches over a little bit into Chapter 7 that you're going to be talking about reading this coming week. Okay, so we have a lot to cover. So the issue of power is basically the main thrust of the Constitution. Remember that up to this time, the United States had been under the control of Britain and under the control of the king. So they are wanting to get rid of the king, and they're wanting to have a democracy or a democratic republic where the people have the say and the people have the control of the government. So basically, the Constitution, the whole story about the Constitution and the whole idea behind the Constitution is the issue of power and who has the power. They wanted to know how to divide the government or the power, how to balance the power, how to limit the power, and how to allot governmental power. That was the main thrust of this Constitution, was how to govern the country so that it was fair and that the people had a say. They succeeded in designing a balance that has since that time provided the United States with liberty, order, and with an enduring charter. Okay, so our charter endures. Even to this day, what they originally did endures to this day. So it's so important. So let's discuss for just a minute in chat. Why is it important that our Constitution be a written document? That's a good answer, Emily. You can't change what's been written or set in stone. Micah said we need it to last for future leaders, and also we need proof that it exists and is still valid. So it can't be changed, Sam. Very good. That's true, Jackson. People need to be able to go see it and identify it, right? With it being written down, it actually increases the value of it, because if people had just by oral tradition passed on the ideals and the points in the Constitution, you remember once again the game telephone. If you play the game telephone, once 2 or 3 people have heard it and repeated it, it changes, right? So in order for it to be enduring and to last, it needed to be written down so that future generations can see it. So the written document inherently defines our limited government and the limit of our government. So a principle is a fundamental truth, a concept, or a foundation upon which a country is founded. These are the ones we're going to talk about today: popular sovereignty, the separation of powers, checks and balances, limited government, and federalism. You read about all of those recently, all right? So just as a quick little pop quiz, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So I'm going to give you ability to draw on the page. So just very quickly, I would like you to give a definition of each one of these. You can use your textbook, okay? So federalism, thank you, Sam, is a system in which governmental power is divided into 2 or more levels. Exactly. Popular sovereignty, thank you, Abe, is a doctrine that the government is created by the will of the people. Okay. So limited government is a constitutional principle that limits government to only those powers granted by law. Very good. Okay, so we still need separation of powers. The principle of dividing national power among 3 different branches of government to prevent a group or individual from gaining too much power. Very, very good. All right, so Jackson just posted up checks and balances, making sure that one part of the government does not get too much power. Those are excellent definitions, everybody. Make sure you know those, okay? They might show up on your unit test. So the U.S. Constitution accomplished a very monumental thing. It was the concept of separating and balancing the powers of the government. So here's our legislative branch. It's made up of Congress, and their job is to make the laws for us. The executive branch is made up of the president, the vice president, and they are there to carry out the laws. He also makes use of different departments. We have the judicial branch, which is made up of the judges and courts, and their job is to interpret the laws. So they look at the Constitution and the different laws that are passed, and their job is to make sure that the Constitution is being adhered to. All right. So separating the power between the 3 branches ensures that no one has too much power. Just think about it. If we did not have the separation of powers, one group could take over and run the government. But because we have them separated and then we have checks and balances to come back and double check, no one group is able to have too much power. I can think of various presidents that we've had who would probably have liked to have had more power than they had. And their personality would have been the type to take over and to be more like a monarch rather than a democracy. But because we have Congress and we have the checks and balances, they weren't able to do that. So I'm very thankful for those checks and balances. So when we talk about checks and balances, it refers to the rules in the Constitution which balance the power between those 3 branches of government so that no branch can become too powerful. Now, there is a difference between checks and balances and separation of power. If you look on page 80 in your textbook,